podcast show for business owners and managers who are passionate about developing people and growing a successful business. And now here's your host, Alistair Booth from the HR Booth.
Welcome to our latest Lightning podcast. So delighted to join you today, and the topic on this podcast is all about company culture and employee engagement. So it's a topic that comes up quite frequently with our clients, and it's certainly something over the last few years that more and more businesses are more aware of and trying to kind of take a lot of steps to improve culture and their business and their levels of employee engagement. So today is really just to kind of share some insights around that in terms of what we see working with some of our clients, businesses that we've worked with, and also just a little bit about what we do in our own business as well. So I've got a few questions on this topic, and I will do my best to answer them throughout this episode. So the first one is around, why is company culture important when it comes to employee engagement? So that's a really good question, and essentially, if you want good levels of employee engagement in the business, you need to kind of create a bit of a forum and an environment for that to kind of thrive. So, culture means, different things to different people. So, there's probably not a kind of one size fits all. And you can also have a situation in a business where the vast majority of the people in the business might think the culture is great, and other people might think it's not, because their feelings and their perception might be different from the majority. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. But it's important in terms of employee engagement, because you're creating that kind of platform in that environment where employee engagement is good and levels are high. And if you've got good levels of engagement, then you are going to see better levels of productivity. That's going to impact on your customer in a positive way, and also impact on your bottom line in a positive way as well. So that's kind of why it's important. But as I say, company culture means different things to different people, and we'll try and kind of explore that through this episode. So the next question I've kind of been asked here is around, what are some of the common signs that a company culture needs improvement? So there's probably kind of a few things around that. One might be that you have, got high staff turnover. So you might see a lot of people kind of leaving the business. You might also have kind of high absence rates. So that might be a kind of sign that there's an issue. You're probably seeing productivity levels kind of drop, so that would be a kind of factor. So where performance levels have been high in the past might not be so high currently, so that might be a sign that there's an issue that needs to be improved. And you might also have people who have perhaps been quite outgoing, good personalities, contributing quite a lot, then becoming a lot quieter, and then maybe their performance levels kind of dropping. So they're the ones that it's usually kind of a sign that there's kind of something going on. So they're maybe not leaving the business, but they're maybe just not doing what they used to do before. And there could be a few factors around that. I've seen this before, where it might be they might be see other people who are not performing and not being challenged on that, so that ultimately kind of brings their performance levels down. Or it may be that they see an issue with culture, and that's why their performance levels have kind of dropped as well. So that's kind of some of the signs to kind of look out for in any business. And the steps that you can take if you want to enhance company culture, well, I suppose first of all is identifying that there is an issue. So that would be the first step, and you can kind of do that through employee forums. It might be employee engagement surveys. You might have informal forums like kind of listening groups or town halls and different things like that. So it's kind of creating that environment where people can kind of give you that feedback, and I guess what you would then be looking to understand is what's the reasons and what do people kind of want to see. Now, culture isn't about providing free pizzas, pool tables, table tennis, beers in the fridge, pizza Fridays, all that kind of stuff. That all looks great, and on the face of it looks great for social media and great for attracting people in the business perhaps, but that isn't what kind of company culture is all about. So you kind of need to delve into that in your own business, just to kind of establish what are the issues and what steps can you take to enhance that in your business. And as I say, that could mean different things for different people. So some of the challenges that businesses face when trying to improve culture and how to overcome it, there might be, one might be a bit of resistance from people. Every business has people who are maybe a bit resistant to change, so that might be something that's an issue. What you might also have is actually, without knowing the reasons why a culture is an issue, maybe the reasons that it's an issue is because of the way your line managers are performing or not performing or conducting themselves. So that, you might be met with some resistance at kind of management level, because typically they might, that's their way of doing things, and they maybe don't want to improve. So that you could be kind of meeting some resistance from your kind of management team within the business. So ultimately, to try and overcome that, you need to kind of present the why. Why are you doing it? What's the benefits? What's in it for them? And then kind of create a framework and how you kind of manage that. But obviously, if you've identified it as an issue with your managers, you need to kind of address that kind of head on. And if that isn't something that they're willing to take on board, then ultimately, like anything, you would have to kind of deal with that potentially through a formal process to get them to change. And that might be something you have to kind of consider. But as I say, it kind of does depend on what the issues are that have been highlighted around what the culture challenges might be. Other challenges could be the fact that people maybe feel that team building or collaboration's kind of dropped, and how what you're maybe seeing now is kind of hybrid or remote teams. So that might be a challenge in terms of how you overcome that. So that's a kind of new way that people are now having to work, and businesses are having to adapt. So that might be a challenge, is how you do that. You might also have a situation where it's managers managing remote teams. So have they got the skills to kind of do that? So that might be some of the kind of challenges. And how do you keep everybody involved when you have kind of got remote and kind of hybrid teams? So that might be just some of the challenges that you have around that. Generally speaking, it's not usually about cost. It might cost money to put on events or organise the pizzas and things that I kind of said, but generally speaking, that's not what culture is. So cost shouldn't really be a kind of barrier. Obviously, I get if obviously you're trying to get people together and it is remote teams, that the cost of a venue and location, etc. But you need to kind of look at that as perhaps being an investment, and ultimately, if you've got a kind of more engaged workforce, better culture, that's going to improve on your bottom line, improve your customer experience, have customers spending more money with you, wanting to come back, etc. So you should see that as an investment if that is what you kind of need to do. What are the most effective ways to communicate your values and culture on a regular basis? So I suppose the values aren't something that are just displayed on a screensaver or on the walls in the office or in the canteen or whatever. Your values are something you need to kind of demonstrate on a day-to-day basis. So you need to be talking about them on a day-to-day basis. So when you're giving feedback to a member of your team, how does that align with your kind of core values? And obviously your core values will be different for different businesses, but obviously what you need to be doing is anything that an employee does in the business around their performance, good and maybe the bad, is how does that align to your kind of core values. So we'll be speaking about that in your check-ins and your one-to-ones and your town halls, your team meetings, etc., so that your values are something that are part of the day-to-day fabric in the business, and not just something that's on display that people maybe get told about on their first day and it's never referred to again. So you would kind of use that around maybe decisions around promotion. You might kind of use that around decisions about new customers, clients, etc. Does that fit with your kind of culture and values, etc.? So they're the sort of things that you want to try and get across. And if there's any kind of recognition in the business, how does that align with your core values? Communication is important, so good practice around that is daily check-ins with your team, especially if they're kind of remote and kind of hybrid. If you've got teams in the business face to face, what I've seen work well in larger organisations before is a kind of daily huddle. So in the morning is a bit of a check-in with the team. What was the successes for the day before? What's the priorities for the day ahead? What are the challenges maybe facing you that day, and get everybody kind of involved in that. But regular communication around performance, people want to know how they're doing. People like praise, people like recognition, but at the same time, people also like to know when they've maybe not done something as well, so they get feedback on that so they can learn and grow in the future. So that communication is important, and it's also just important to be communicating across the business around things that are happening in the business. So that might be, new customers, new team members, people that maybe left the business. You might be talking about, the economy at the minute. So what does that mean for your business in terms of growth? Are you looking to look at different markets, etc.? So people kind of want to know these types of things. So communicating that is healthy. And also what you might find is in challenging situations, people might actually come forward with ideas and suggestions you've not considered. So actually having that regular communication is good practice, because ultimately that could help drive your business forward. So it shows that you're listening, but ultimately the people that are running your business on a day-to-day basis, they know what's going on. So they might have some of the solutions that can help drive your business forward. And if you're not communicating, people then draw their own conclusions from that, and they maybe think that things aren't going so well, so that might impact on them thinking the job's not stable, so they might then look at leaving the business, and all that has an impact. So these are the sorts of things you want to think about when communicating a message to your teams. And finally, for me, how the HR booth can support businesses creating a stronger culture and engagement is something we do quite a bit with clients, either on a kind of short-term kind of project basis or on a kind of longer-term arrangement. So we can do that through various methods. So that might be us coming in to facilitate focus groups or listening groups. We might be conducting anonymous employee surveys, pulse surveys, that type of thing, just to kind of get some feedback, and then present that information to yourself as the business owner and the business leader, and then work out an action plan in terms of what things you need to kind of work on to drive that forward, and then share that message with the team. So there's nothing worse than actually having people complete a survey, or ask them to provide their views, and then you actually do nothing with the results on that. So it's important that the follow-up is there, so you can kind of share that and then kind of create an action plan and work with them together. So that's some of the things that our team HR consultants are doing on a regular basis. So hopefully that has been of use. As I say, culture and engagement is something that is hugely important to a business. I think businesses now recognise the value that has on the business and the importance of it. And if it's something that you're kind of struggling with, or need some kind of hints and tips around that, or maybe just want that kind of independent advice around it, then feel free to kind of reach out to us at the HR booth. You can contact me through the usual channels, which is info@thehrbooth.co.uk, or via the website on www.thehrbooth.co.uk. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will speak to you again soon.